Here are the charges that were just filed this afternoon. First of all, 2 counts of first-degree murder based on theories about how all of this allegedly went down. And then 3 counts of solicitation to commit first-degree murder. We have a lot of questions about that specifically, but the DA not giving too much information, in fact, not giving any information about how they came about these charges because this investigation is ongoing. We may not find out what that information is until the end of January. Inside the courtroom this morning, though, Frazee sat and listened as his lawyers spoke with prosecutors and the judge about motions in this case. One motion the defense wanted approved would have issued a sort of gag order preventing anyone related to this case from talking to the media. The judge and prosecutors agreed that that was not necessary, but the defense also wanted all communication about this case between law enforcement to be saved. The judge, though, once again agreed with prosecutors that that was overreaching. This Friday, though, there will be another hearing where a few other motions will be discussed. There's apparently a small piece of evidence that prosecutors want tested. They're going to talk about how to go about that on Friday. And they'll also discuss how to handle the probable cause affidavit, which is important. Frazee's defense lawyers will have access to warrants today, but that affidavit that gives specifics as to why Frazee was arrested, that is still under seal. Here's 4th Judicial District Attorney Dan May explaining why.
They've got a lot of investigative leads, a number of interviews they want to do, a number of items they have to collect, and quite frankly, releasing all that information to the public could hurt their ability to do that investigation.
The preliminary hearing, that is going to be on January 29th, and that is going to be crucial, where we're going to hopefully learn a lot more information. There's going to be evidence presented, testimony that we will be able to hear, and they're also going to talk about bond. But until then, Frazee will remain in jail without bond. In Teller County, I'm Liz Kodelik, 9 News.